You ever notice how everybody loves to talk about a common sense? Like it's some big universal truth we're all born with. Like it's free, automatic, tucked away in your brain somewhere right next to the instinct to blink or scratch your ass. People throw it around like it's the cure for stupidity. Well, if people just had some common sense. Oh yeah, if people had common sense, why the hell do we need a shampoo bottle that says rinse, repeat? Who the hell is out there saying, oh, I thought I was supposed to drink it. I thought it was a smoothie for my hair. No, it's a smoothie for my hair. That's not common sense. That's a lawsuit waiting to happen. They act like common sense is this reliable compass, this voice of reason that keeps us safe. But every time I look around, I don't see common sense. I see instructions, warnings. Bright orange labels plastered on every goddamn thing because somebody somewhere didn't have enough sense to figure it out on their own. We've got warning signs that say do not iron clothes while wearing them. Which means at some point, some idiot was standing there in his boxer shorts with an ironing board tucked under his arm, pressing a hot iron right onto his chest like he was giving himself a tattoo. And the best part? He probably sued the company for not warning him. That's not a lack of common sense. That's the American dream. You want to know how far we've fallen? We live in a world where coffee cups say, a caution. Hot. Well, no shit, it's hot. It's coffee, it's supposed to be hot. If it comes out cold, you start yelling at the barista. But they put it on there anyway, because somebody out there couldn't connect the dots between boiling liquid and burning your lap. That's what we've done. We've outsourced common sense to lawyers and marketing teams. Every product comes with a novel taped to the side. Microwave popcorn. A caution, contents may be hot. Well, what the fuck did you expect? A frozen brick of sadness. You just heard it exploding for 3 minutes like it was artillery fire in your kitchen, and now you're shocked that it's hot. That's not common sense. That's natural selection being interrupted. And don't get me started on ladders. You buy a ladder and right there on the side it says, you do not step on the top rung. Really? Who the hell was climbing to the very tip of the ladder like they were planting a flag on Mount Everest? Standing there wobbling 1 foot on air holding a chainsaw with the other hand. And when they fell, instead of saying, well, maybe I shouldn't have done that, they said, hey, the ladder company didn't tell me I couldn't. That's what common sense has become, a legal defense for the brain dead. Here's one. I bought a chainsaw once. And right on the side it said, do not attempt to stop blade with hands or genitals. Now, listen, I want to meet the guy who made that rule necessary. I want to shake his one remaining hand. Somewhere out there, somebody looked at a spinning metal blade and thought, you know what, I think I can catch that. Common sense, gone, replaced by Darwin's waiting room. And that's just products. What about driving? If common sense really existed, there wouldn't be traffic. There wouldn't be road rage. There wouldn't be accidents every 2 minutes. But no, every time you hit the road, it's like auditioning for a demolition derby. People changing lanes without looking, turning left from the right lane, stopping at a green light because they saw a squirrel. Where's the common sense then? The same people who can't figure out a turn signal are out there operating 2 tons of metal at 70 miles an hour. That's not common sense. That's natural stupidity with a driver's license. And pedestrians aren't any better. You ever see someone cross the street while staring at their phone like they're invincible? Like the glow from Instagram will protect them from a bus. They step right into traffic, headphones in, scrolling through cat videos, and if they get hit, everyone says, oh, what a tragedy. No, it wasn't a tragedy. It was a science experiment proving that gravity still works. Common sense should have told you to look both ways. But people treat crosswalks like force fields, like the paint on the road is going to stop a drunk guy in a pickup truck. That's not common sense. That's wishful thinking. And in the workplace, forget it. We've got safety signs everywhere because somebody couldn't figure out that a wet floor is slippery. What's this? You've seen those yellow cones, right? Fortune, wet floor. You know why they're there, because some genius decided to test the laws of physics by running across a puddle in leather shoes. Slip, fall, break a hip, sue the store. And now every hallway looks like an obstacle course of plastic triangles. If common sense existed, you'd see the water and think, hey, maybe I shouldn't pretend I'm Usain Bolt right now. But no, we need signs, rules, policies, warnings, all because common sense is rarer than a sober Irishman on St. Patrick's Day. Even at the airport. You go through security and they have to tell people to take off their shoes, empty their pockets, pull out their laptops. And still, there's always some jackass holding up the line because he thought his belt buckle was made of invisible metal. Oh, I didn't know I couldn't bring a gallon of shampoo on the plane. Really? You thought you were going to condition everyone at 30,000 feet? Common sense should have told you the government doesn't want you turning row 12 into a bubble bath. And then there's health. If people had common sense, we wouldn't need diet books, gyms, or doctors telling us to eat vegetables. You wouldn't have to be reminded that a gallon of soda and a bucket of fried chicken probably isn't the breakfast of champions. But instead, we need food pyramids and calorie counts printed on the menu because otherwise people will eat themselves into an early grave. Ugh. And even with the information right there in front of them, they'll say, give me the triple cheeseburger with extra bacon. Common sense says, hey, maybe have a salad once in a while. But common sense never stood a chance against extra bacon. Religion's got the same problem. Ooh, every religion preaches some version of a be nice, don't kill, don't steal. That should be common sense. But apparently it wasn't common enough, so we had to carve it into stone tablets and threaten people with eternal fire just to make them follow it. Think about that. Human beings are so bad at common sense we had to invent entire religions just to keep us from screwing each other over. Without commandments, half the world would be running around like toddlers with knives. And even with the commandments, people still can't get it right. They'll say, thou shalt not kill, and then spend centuries inventing creative new ways to kill each other. Common sense says, don't stab your neighbor. Religion says, well, unless God told you to. See the difference? And then there's politics. If common sense were real, politicians wouldn't exist. You wouldn't elect people who spend half their time lying to you and the other half trying to convince you it's the truth. Common sense would say, hey, maybe don't trust the guy who's been stealing from you for 30 years. But no, every election people line up like lemmings, nodding their heads, waving little flags, hoping this time it'll be different. Common sense should tell you that if someone promises to fix everything, they're full of shit. But people keep falling for it over and over like a dog chasing a tennis ball. That's not common sense. That's collective amnesia. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying I'm above it. Nobody's perfect. I've done dumb things. I've burned my mouth on pizza, even though I saw the cheese bubbling like lava. I've touched a hot pan, even though I just took it out of the oven. We all screw up, but the difference is I don't turn around and blame the pan manufacturer for not warning me. I don't sue Domino's because my tongue looks like Hiroshima. I take the hit. I learn the lesson. I move on. That used to be common sense. Now it's a rare collector's item. You know what else? Everyone thinks they're the one with common sense. Ever notice that? Nobody says, yeah, I'm an idiot. I don't have any. No, they always say it's everyone else who's stupid. Me? I've got common sense. Well, if everybody's got it, then why does the world look like a circus run by the clowns? If everyone's so damn sensible, how come we keep doing the same stupid shit over and over again? Wars, pollution, traffic jams, reality television. Common sense would have killed reality TV at birth. But no, people keep watching, season after season, like it's high art. Who will get the rose? Who will survive on the island? Who cares? Common sense should have told you to read a book instead. And schools aren't teaching it either. You can get a degree in philosophy, chemistry, basket weaving, but there's no degree in common sense because it can't be taught. You either got it or you don't. And judging by the state of the world, most people don't. You ever meet someone with 3 PhDs who can't figure out how to use a toaster? Brilliant in the lab, useless in the kitchen. They'll split atoms, but they can't scramble eggs. Common sense is supposed to be the great equalizer, but it's more like the great myth. Everybody talks about it, nobody's seen it. It's not even common across cultures. What's obvious to one group is insanity to another. In some places, common sense says, oh, don't eat that, it's poisonous. In others, it's a delicacy. Some people think it's common sense to shake hands, others bow, others kiss on both cheeks, and somebody always screws it up. Common sense is just whatever dumb rules you grew up with, which means it's not common at all. It's just local programming. And now we got the internet, which is like pouring gasoline on the fire. Common sense used to be hard enough when you were just dealing with the idiots in your neighborhood. Now you got global stupidity, 24 hours a day, streaming in high definition. You can watch someone eat Tide Pods, and instead of thinking, wow, that guy's an idiot, a million people go, hey, maybe I'll try that too. Common sense should have stopped it at the first bite. But common sense doesn't stand a chance against viral fame. So when people say, oh, common sense, what they really mean is a my sense. They want everyone else to think the way they do, like the way they do, live the way they do. Because deep down, nobody believes in common sense. They just believe they're smarter than everyone else. And maybe they are, but the bar is so low. It's not much of an accomplishment. Saying you've got common sense in this world is like saying you can tie your own shoes. Congratulations, you're better than the guy drooling on himself in the corner. And that's the thing, isn't it? We call it common sense, but the truth is, it's the rarest thing there is. It's like Bigfoot, everyone talks about it, but nobody can prove they've seen it. Common sense isn't common, it's a miracle. And like all miracles, it usually shows up about once every 2,000 years and then disappears again. Because if common sense really existed, if it was truly common, we wouldn't need signs, warnings, religions, politicians, or reality TV. We wouldn't need lawyers, safety manuals, or a 12-step process for using a toaster. The fact that we need any of those things at all is proof that common sense is just another bullshit myth we tell ourselves so we don't have to admit the truth. The truth is simple. People are stupid and the universe knows it. You ever notice how society keeps coming up with new ways to prove there's no such thing as common sense? Like every time we think we've hit the bottom of the barrel, somebody shows up with a shovel and says, oh no, we can go deeper. And it's never subtle. It's loud, it's dumb, and it's right in your face. Just look around. Politics, advertising, religion, horoscopes, social media. Every single one is a carnival ride designed to remind you that most people are running on half a brain and a dream. Take politics. Oh, you want proof common sense is extinct? Just look at who people vote for. You've got millions of citizens, supposedly the most advanced species on the planet, and they line up every few years to hand the keys of the country to the guy with the best haircut and the fakest smile. Not the smartest, not the most capable. No, the guy who promises them free candy without telling them who's paying for the damn candy. That's politics in a nutshell. One guy says, I can fix everything. The other guy says, oh no, I can fix everything. And everyone in the crowd says, wow, they both sound so convincing. That's not common sense. That's speed dating with a ballot. And you'd think after decades of watching politicians screw up everything they touch, people would learn. You'd think common sense would kick in and say, hey, maybe we shouldn't trust this guy who's been lying to us since Nixon was in diapers. But no. Every election cycle, it's the same show, the same empty promises, the same fake optimism. And half the country eats it up like it's popcorn at a bad movie. They'll boo the villain, cheer the hero, and leave the theater thinking something's gonna change. But nothing changes, except the guy in the suit, and sometimes not even that. Common sense should tell you not to trust someone who makes a career out of being untrustworthy. But apparently, common sense doesn't vote. Then there's advertising. Holy shit, if you want to see how far we've drifted from reason, just turn on your TV. Advertising is one long insult to your intelligence. Companies will sell you bottled water by showing you a mountain stream, like they scooped it straight from a glacier while an angel whispered into it. Meanwhile, it's coming out of the same tap as your toilet, and people buy it by the case. It's pure. Yeah, pure bullshit. If common sense existed, bottled water would be the biggest scam in history. But instead, it's Tuesday at Costco. Or how about commercials for medicine? They'll spend 10 seconds telling you what the pill does and 2 minutes listing all the ways it might kill you. Ask your doctor about Happy Funza. Side effects may include nausea, dizziness, anal leakage, spontaneous combustion, and death. and people line up to take it. Common sense would say, if it can make my liver explode, maybe I'll pass. But no, people say, well, I trust the smiling guy in the white coat on TV. That's not common sense. That's hypnosis with a copay. And then you've got fast food ads. You've seen them big, juicy burgers dripping with cheese, fries golden and perfect, soda fizzing like champagne. Then you order it, and what do you get? A limp bun, a gray patty, and fries that taste like cardboard someone peed on. Common sense should tell you the picture isn't real. But people keep falling for it, like they're waiting for McDonald's to suddenly become a Michelin restaurant. Religion's another masterpiece of nonsense. If common sense ruled the world, we wouldn't need a middleman to tell us not to be assholes. But here we are, with priests, pastors, imams, rabbis, monks, all trying to sell us morality like it's a timeshare. And the sales pitch is always the same. Do what we say or bad things will happen. That's not divine wisdom. That's the mafia. A nice soul you got there. Be a shame if something happened to it and people buy it. They give money, they kneel, they chant, all because someone told them a sky landlord is keeping score. Common sense should say, hey, maybe I don't need $1 billion cathedral to remind me not to stab my neighbor. But common sense never had a collection plate. And horoscopes. Don't get me started on horoscopes. You mean to tell me there are people walking around thinking the position of Jupiter has something to do with their shitty day at the office? Oh, Mercury's in retrograde. That's why I forgot to pay my bills. No, you forgot to pay your bills because you're lazy. Common sense should tell you the stars don't give a damn about your love life. But people cling to it because it gives them comfort. They'll say, oh, I'm a laborer, that's why I'm indecisive. No, you're indecisive because you're dumb. And the scary part? Some of these people vote, drive cars, raise children. Imagine getting into a car accident and the other driver says, sorry, bro, I'm a Sagittarius, I can't merge. And society keeps inventing more of this crap. Detox teas, crystal heal. Essential oils that supposedly cure cancer but can't even cure a zit. You've got people rubbing lavender on their forehead like it's gonna solve their mortgage. Common sense should say, maybe I should see a doctor instead of sniffing peppermint oil. But common sense has been replaced by influencers with ring lights, and they're cashing in, selling hope in a bottle to people who can't tell the difference between science and fairy dust. Then there's technology. You'd think with all these gadgets, common sense would improve. We've got the entire knowledge of human history in our pockets. And what do people use it for? Taking pictures of their food and watching strangers dance on the internet. If common sense existed, the smartphone would be the greatest tool ever invented. Instead, it's the world's most expensive distraction device. People are so glued to their screens, they'll walk straight into traffic, bump into poles, fall into fountain. And when it happens, everyone laughs and films it instead of helping. That's not common sense, that's Darwinism with Wi-Fi. And you can see it in the way people believe whatever headline they scroll past. Doesn't matter how insane it is, if it confirms what they already think, they'll repost it like it's gospel. Did you hear? The government is putting mind control chips in cucumbers. And instead of saying, that sounds stupid, people start inspecting their salads. Common sense would tell you not to trust a meme your uncle shared on Facebook at 3 a.m. But nobody listens, because common sense can't compete with paranoia in all caps. And don't even get me started on warning labels, because society keeps inventing more of them every year. You buy a bag of peanuts, and it says or contains peanuts. Well, no shit. What did you think was inside motor oil? Or you buy a hammer and it says, a warning, do not hit yourself in the head. Who the hell was doing that? If common sense were real, there wouldn't be a label telling you not to stick a hairdryer in the bathtub. But here we are, surrounded by instructions written for people who shouldn't be allowed outside unsupervised. You know what's funny? The more advanced we get, the less common sense people seem to have. We've got self-driving cars now. Cars that park themselves, brake themselves, steer themselves. And you know what people do? They take a nap in the front seat like it's a magic carpet. And then when it crashes into a tree, they say, well, I didn't know it couldn't see stop signs. That's not a lack of common sense. That's suicide by stupidity. Even the government proves common sense is extinct. You ever listen to politicians argue? They'll spend 6 hours debating whether 2 plus 2 equals 4, and at the end they'll compromise and say it equals 3.5. Common sense would say, ew, what works? Stop wasting time. But governments don't do what works, they do what gets them reelected. And what gets them reelected is promising you free shit they can't deliver. It's like being in a relationship with a compulsive liar. You know they're full of it, but you stick around anyway because you're lonely. And advertising, politics, religion, all of it, it's built on one thing. The fact that people will believe anything if you say it with confidence. That's the real test of common sense. Can you see through the bullshit? And the answer, 9 times out of 10, is no. That's why every year society comes up with new scams, new fads, new cults, new diets, new miracle cures. And people keep lining up, wallets open, brains closed. Common sense should stop them. But common sense is outnumbered. It's kind of amazing, isn't it? For a species that climbed out of caves, built skyscrapers, split the atom, and landed on the moon, we still haven't figured out not to elect liars, not to drink bleach, not to trust horoscopes, not to buy water in a plastic bottle when it's free from the tap. We've mastered technology, but we still haven't mastered the obvious. That's how far we've come. Or maybe how far we haven't. And that's why I say common sense isn't common, sense isn't common. It's comedy. It's the biggest joke of them all, and the punchline is up. But no, people listen to the speeches, they see the flag waving, they hear the national anthem, and suddenly it's like they've been hypnotized. They'll put the same crooks back in office every time. That's not survival instinct. That's Stockholm Syndrome. And survival, forget it. People can't even handle basic emergencies. You ever see what happens when the power goes out for 2 hours? Society collapses instantly. People are running around like it's the apocalypse. The Wi-Fi's down. How will we survive? They've got candles, food in the pantry, bottled water. But the second the internet cuts out, they're writing goodbye letters. Common sense would say, relax, light a candle, read a book. But common sense doesn't compete with TikTok withdrawal. Or look at natural disasters. Every time there's a hurricane, the news tells people to evacuate. And what do? Half the population stays behind to ride it out. Ride it out? What are you, a cowboy? It's a Category 5 storm. It's not a roller coaster, it's a blender. And then, when their house is floating down the street, they're on the roof with a bedsheet, waving at the helicopter. Common sense would have said, leave when you had the chance. But common sense doesn't stand a chance against stubborn stupidity. And when survival instincts really kick in, you know what people do? They fight each other over toilet paper. Remember that? A virus breaks out, and instead of thinking, I should buy vitamins, medicine, canned food, people went straight for the Charmin. Whole aisles were wiped clean, unintended. As if the first sign of trouble means you'll be shitting yourself non-stop for 6 months. That's not survival. That's mass hysteria with a shopping cart. And speaking of shopping carts, you ever notice how people can't even put them back? That's the true test of common sense. Returning a shopping cart, it doesn't cost anything, it doesn't take long, and it makes life easier for everyone. But people still leave them in the middle of the parking lot like it's a modern art exhibit. Common sense would say a push at 20 feet into the corral, but apparently that's too much to ask. And these are the same people who say, oh, the world is falling apart. No, you're falling apart. The world's fine. And here's the big one, electing leaders who can't even spell a policy. Survival instinct should tell you, don't put dumb people in charge of nuclear codes. But that's exactly what we do. We look for the loudest, the flashiest, the most charismatic idiot and hand them the power to blow up the planet. Common sense should have put a stop to that centuries ago. But common sense never made it into the ballot box. Even in personal relationships, common sense doesn't stand a chance. You ever see someone date the same kind of toxic partner over and over again? It's like watching someone repeatedly stick their hand in a blender. Oh, this time it'll be different. This time they'll treat me right. No, they won't. Common sense would say, maybe don't date the guy who lives in his mom's basement and sells weed out of a shoebox. But instead people say, he's misunderstood. Yeah, misunderstood by the police. And common sense about money? Gone. People will spend $800 on shoes but can't pay their electric bill. They'll blow $200 at the bar but complain about a $20 copay at the doctor. They'll drive a car they can't afford, filled with gas they can't afford, to a job they hate just so they can buy shit they don't need. Common sense would have said, slow down, live within your means, save a little. But no, we've built an entire economy on pretending to be richer than we are. That's not survival. That's cosplay for debt collectors. And the government helps too. Survival instinct should mean making sure people have food, water, shelter. But governments spend more on tanks than they do on hospitals. They'll say, we can't afford health care, and then blow $1 trillion on a new fighter jet that doesn't even work in the rain. Common sense would say, take care of your people before you buy new toys. But governments don't run on common sense. They run on contracts, bribes, and lobbyists. And people just shrug because they've been trained to think that's normal. And let's not forget education. If schools were about survival, they'd teach kids how to cook, how to budget, how to handle a crisis. But no, instead they're memorizing the square root of 144. Like that's gonna help when their car breaks down in the desert. Common sense would say, teach the basics of life. But schools teach the basics of standardized tests. That's why you've got people who can quote Shakespeare but can't change a tire. That's not survival. That's trivia night at Applebee's. And here's the kicker. People think they're smart. That's the funniest part. They'll make the dumbest decisions in history and then pat themselves on the back for being clever. They'll say, I'm using my instincts. No, you're not. You're using the same brain that thought eating Tide Pods was a good idea. Survival instinct says, don't eat poison. But somehow, society turned it into a challenge.